So welcome, gentlemen, to this panel discussion on claim settlement best practices. I have with me a very diverse and eminent panel of speakers. Bhargav Dasgupta, MD and CEO, ICICI Lombard General Insurance; Mayank Batwal, CEO, Aditya Birla Health Insurance Company; Dr. S. Prakash, Managing Director of Star Health and Allied Insurance; and Ashish Kumar Srivatsav, MD and CEO of PNB MetLife Insurance. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us today. So gentlemen, please allow me to start this discussion with an issue that is really, to my mind, at the heart of this discussion around claim settlement, which is that across the world, the insurance industry is the one that is the least trusted amongst customers. And companies don't trust customers, customers don't trust companies. And we are caught in this circle of mistrust. First of all, what has got us to this position, and how do we really break this circle of mistrust? Anyone can take that question.
So that's a tough question, Mahalakshmi. So if you're okay, I can try to answer part of it. And
Sure.
I guess collectively we can probably answer your question. So what you said is absolutely correct, that there is, by the basic design of insurance, there is potentially, breach of trust that happens. Let's understand the dynamics, right? So when you look at insurance, you look at pooling together a small premium from many people, and you expect that few people will suffer some kind of a disaster, an accident or a health event or whatever it might be, and you pay out of that pool. Now, one of the responsibilities that we have is to keep the premium low, because if the premium isn't low, then too many people don't come into the pool because it just becomes too expensive. And if you look at the premiums that we charge, typically would be 1 or 2 rupees for the total sum insured of, let's say, 100 rupees. I'm just giving a rough number. It varies across different types of insurance. So what happens is, if the expectation is that there is what we call utmost good faith, which means that we trust the customer to give us full information when they come in. And because if they come in with existing diseases, let's say for health, then that model fails, because you'll have many people who will come in with small premium and they will take a big claim. And if too many people do that, then the pool mechanism fails. So one of the things that insurers do is, first, they do a lot of underwriting to select people to come into the pool. Now, in medical, you realize that a lot of things you cannot control even through underwriting, because you can manage even that process. And at times you find people who come in with diseases without disclosing all of that to us. The second thing that happens is, in our industry, the service is provided by a third party, right? So a health insurance claim is consumed in a hospital. And at times there is an adverse incentive for hospitals to inflate bills. So we have to get in and look at each of those bills and control unnecessary expenditure. So because if unnecessary expenditure happens, again the premium will go up for the rest of the population. So there is a bit amount of friction at many stages, which creates a bit of distrust, because a lot of people may not understand why we are doing this. If we don't do this, what will happen is the premium for the rest of the population who are honest and who are genuine and who are coming for good reason, the right reasons, for them the premium would go up. But it's difficult for insurance companies to eliminate who is a priori, who is potentially misusing the system and who is not. And hence at times everyone kind of goes through a difficult journey. And that probably at times creates a bit of trust deficit.
Sure. And how do we really reinstate this trust, Dr. Prakash? Because this is like a chicken and egg. Who is going to address the problem first? And collectively, even as a society, do we really have some sort of a mechanism to get people to behave in a certain way? What can insurance companies do?
Thanks, Mahalakshmi. Actually, the insurers have to approach at 3 levels: at the customer level, at the hospital level, and at the organization level. So the customers, they should understand, as Mr. Bhargav rightly said, we are only custodian of the common fund. And insurance is supposed to be for protection. It is not an entitlement. So this message should clearly reach the customers, and to that effect, we have to train the intermediaries who work to distribute the insurance business. And we design the product, but when it comes to delivery of services, customers do not come to us, they go to the hospital.
Right.
And the hospitals are not aware of 33 plus insurance companies having 500 plus different products. So naturally, there is a design delivery disconnect. And this has to be addressed. So a good communication with the hospitals, constant effort to bridge the gap between payer and provider. Already a lot of industrial bodies are taking these initiatives. Constant effort should be taken to bridge this gap. Insurers should have a good understanding of what is happening in a hospital, and insurers should have a mechanism to recognize and identify quality players. That is, in fact, the first way to eliminate fraud. At the same time, hospitals also should understand the nuances, the objectives, noble objective of the health insurance, and they should work in tandem with the requirement of the insurance, because both of them should understand that both the hospitals and insurers should coexist for this ecosystem to flourish.
Sure. Mayank, you've been in insurance all along. And what is your experience in terms of where is there an education gap, and what is it that we can really address through better communication, and what part of it is something that we have to just take for granted that is not going to change?
Yeah, so I'll probably try and add to what Bhargav and Dr. Prakash mentioned. So see, I'm talking specifically, of course, of health insurance. When a customer is buying a health insurance product, the product per se, is linked to health conditions, right? So, even if you want to really make it as simple as you wish to be, there are medical conditions, etc., involved in the way product is, the benefit that the product is trying to cover. So, sometimes in layman language, they tend to become a bit of jargons, because sometimes medical terminologies to define conditions and all might differ. So, even if you standardize, there is still a possibility of a confusion. Plus, to make sure that the price is effective, and there are some benefits like, exclusions like, 2-year waiting period for, let's say, a cataract operation. Because if you were to allow it day one, then there is possibility of a anti-selection, right? That the customer will buy it. Anyone who wants to go for an operation will buy it and go for it tomorrow. So right. Typically there are some benefits which have, either exclusions or waiting period and so on and so forth. Now the question is, how effectively do you make sure that the customer understands what's really covered and what's not covered in the benefit for what period or etc. And how do you make sure that they understand it in the language that they can, right? That's to me, a challenge that the industry faces. And one way to do that is just remove all exclusions, just make it everything is covered. Of course, if you do that, firstly, it has to happen for the entire industry. It can't be that's one player. For example, in South Africa, where our partners come from, there are minimum prescribed benefits. You virtually cannot have any exclusion, but everyone right. does that. And then the product becomes very expensive, because now, right. Anyone who needs a condition, they'll end up buying the product and so on and so forth. So that's a journey to travel. I think IRDAI has already made an effort to kind of remove some exclusions lately in the standard product. So I think the effort has to be one at an individual player level, that they put all efforts in the selling process, in onboarding. Let's say when you onboard a customer, do a calling and re-explain the benefits. And some at the industry level, that some of these benefits, which are in any case, standard exclusions or waiting periods across all products, how do we as an industry do that? So in that context, the industry did start a whole campaign around awareness just pre-COVID. Unfortunately, because of COVID, that campaign has kind of got deferred a bit, and I'm hoping that we can revive it as soon as we can, because those are efforts where customers start understanding benefits and so on and so forth. And that effort has to be made by the entire industry together, plus each player. I do want to add one more point, though, though that's not the specific question you asked me on the claims experience. Please understand that the claims experience today, not just about, exclusions or deductions or non-payment. And one of the reasons why customers are unhappy is the time, just the sheer time and the experience right. that they go through in hospital, right? I mean, for example, if you're getting discharged, an insurance customer will take 3-4 hours more than a customer who's paying cash. Why does it happen? Because they have to get approval of the insurance company and so on and so forth. Why does that happen? Because the paper is flowing in the most archaic manner in India today, right? technology integration between payer and provider, which is so important, that's just not there, right? And I think that is an effort which one single player can never make. It has to be at an industry level. There are international standards of pipes, technology pipes between payers and provider, which makes data and information flow through so seamlessly that the experience is actually much better than even a cash paying customer.
Right.
Now, those are journeys that we have now started. I'm hoping that we can expedite it also through the national mission, health mission, and also IRDA is trying through IRB. So it's a journey, Mahalakshmi, and I think we all have to do it, make it happen together.
Sure. I'm going to come to that point on efficiency in a bit. But before that, Ashish, on this point of very pertinent point of exclusion, because this is one of the grouses, everyone has, that you buy an insurance and then you see that this is not covered. At what stage of the industry or at a certain level of penetration or numbers would it really make sense for, or one can hope that exclusions be completely done away with? Because I would tend to think that it is a question of arithmetic.
Yeah, so Mahalakshmi, you pose a very interesting question. So, my friend Mayank, Bhargav and others, they spoke about it. So it's not very different with life. If you want to have a policy with no exclusions, the price point, because we also have, customers who are very price sensitive in India, and, the price point will be much higher. In some cases, it may not be even affordable. The good thing is, Mahalakshmi, players, like us, for example, with a very strong parentage, MetLife, with 152 years of insurance experience globally, we are bringing in, products and solutions which are, acceptable across, and are bringing to India. I think, the point is that if we can improve our technology, for example, we are now, some players have adopted it. We've also started it. We've started looking at pre-issuance video verifications, where we speak to the customer, we can see the customer agrees to a certain, we explain, the product, the customer is getting to know more, we are doing analytics, etc. So as the awareness grows, as people get to understand the insurance products more and more, they buy according to their needs, which is again one of the mandates that even IRDA has. For example, in this COVID situation, all of us sold a lot of what we call protection products, the term insurance. And that's the need of the hour. And if there are no exclusions there. It's a simple product. It's term. It's you buy it. There is a big cover, and things will and everybody's happy. The improvement that we've seen, Mahalakshmi, while I understand it's a complex product and therefore it may lead to some dissatisfaction. The matrices. If I look at customer complaints. And, they are coming down, as technology improves, as analytics improves, as customer propositions improve, customer complaints are coming down. Claims, is a public disclosure.
Right.
And you look at the claims experiences, 98, 99%, claims experiences. So things are improving. And as we improve, as customers start looking at these claims numbers, the belief in the system will grow. And, unfortunately, COVID has let people to be, now, understand, it's a negative situation, but in some sense, the awareness on insurance has gone up. And I do hope, we as an industry can use this to stand by the customer and sort of increase the belief in the system.
What you said is very well taken, but you haven't answered my question on how far are we from a world of no exclusions. what would it take to create a world where anybody who buys a health insurance can sleep well at night thinking that whatever happens, my company is, going to honor the claim, and it's not going to be a burden on me.
Okay, so I'll try and give it a go once again.
Because, for example, of course, United States is not the best example when it comes to health at all. Yet, at least when you buy an insurance, that you are safe to that extent. Of course, the cover may be less, this, that, and the other. That's a different story altogether. Still, you have paid for something and it's not going to get rejected.
So Mahalakshmi, I think one of the things which would help is data. And when we design products, there are various assumptions at the back end, and the assumptions are also based on the data which is available. Now in India, and you're right, you're comparing it, say with US. Now look at how much data is available, what are the disclosures, medical history, medical centers, all the infrastructure which is there to support the assumptions and therefore the experience. Otherwise, as the other panelists were talking about, there is a certain basic principle that we work on. That principle wouldn't work. And unfortunately, the disclosure norms, the basic infrastructure is not available for us to improve those assumptions on our own.
Right.
And till that happens, I think, we will have to live with, certain exclusions. As I said, things are improving. We are now getting more and more customer centric and explaining to the customer that, okay, this is what you are buying. So I think there is improvement, but there's still some way to go.
Sure.
Bhargav, can I try and dig? Can I take a try at that question of yours, Mahalakshmi? Sure. See, insurance, there's a concept of anti-selection that you can't create a product where people who necessarily need that insurance only buy that product, right? That's a core principle of that. You cannot, you have to avoid and eliminate anti-selection. So you ask that question that how can you remove exclusions? Corporate product, for example, there is, typically there are no exclusions. Everything is covered. Why? Because there is no anti-selection. Everyone in the company is covered. So the moment you eliminate the risk of anti-selection, and you, for example, technically, if you say everyone in India has to buy insurance and no one can go without insurance, you can remove, potentially as many exclusions as you want, because then you're not, running the risk of only people who really need insurance buying insurance. So I think that's a key from a principle perspective issue that you have to eliminate.
Sure. All right. So coming back to the point on efficiency, everything's gone digital, and I presume that pre-COVID also, digital would have accelerated in many ways over the last 3 years. But Bhargav, can you expound on how post-COVID, are there any procedures that have got eliminated? How has this whole claim efficiency improved post-COVID, and how much of it do you think has a secular impact in the sense that it's got more efficient for the good?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question, but before that, I just want to touch upon the earlier question that you asked and add to what both Ashish and Mayank said. Because this is a very important aspect to understand for your readers, and this is important for, as an industry, for us to communicate what what it means. So when you talk about the US example, it is actually the same group format that Mayank talked about. Most of the health insurance is actually through corporates who buy insurance for all their employees. In India, all group policies come without exclusions in terms of pre-existing and the time period caps that we have. And that is because of the reason that Mayank said, that we don't worry about the anti-selection. And I'll give you one more statistic, which probably will emphasize the point, which is, if you look at, there was a few years back a WHO report which talked about the frequency of incidence rates, which means that out of 100 Indians, how many people fall sick in a year? That number for the nation was about 2 to 3%. For retail insurance pools where these exclusions come in, I don't have the industry statistic, but my guess is, based on anecdotal evidence, is it will be about 6-7%, maybe about around 7%, which shows that you anyway have a lot of anti-selection that is happening. People buy insurance without disclosing that they have a disease that they want payment for. So that's something that we have to keep on guarding against. And the second point that I would, so if you really want no exclusion, it has to be universal coverage, the point that Mayank made. But there is one more progress that has happened, which potentially can, improve things, which is the digital health stack. So if you have your health record available, to the insurer, then you could, trust the data and, give policies without too many exclusions, with too many, time periods. And that's a good progress that we are seeing, from the National Health, Agency. Coming back to your specific question on digital. So yes, I mean, for all of us, going digital has been the way, for quite some time. But obviously, COVID has accelerated that journey.
Right.
So I'll give you a couple of examples. So one of the things that has happened is we talked about the fact that there is a lot of paperwork that happens between the provider and the payer. In the past, we used to have a lot of faxes. People would send, claim documents in through mails. That was a high percentage. During COVID, one of the things that the industry did, and the regulator completely supported that, was to move everything into scanned document. We do not necessarily insist on physical copies of paper. We work on scanned documents. I can speak for ourselves and ICICI Lombard now. Today, 95% of the claims that we settle on health is without any physical intervention. It could be e-claim that is coming from the provider, or a scanned image coming from someone else. But there is a lot of progress that is happening beyond just digitization, etc. I think there is a lot of technology development that has happened these days in terms of using machine learning, using AI to speeden up the process. So, for example, when you go to a hospital, if you're an insured customer, the hospital has to take an authorization from the insurance company, saying that can I go ahead with the procedure. So we had a ML solution which would authorize that without a doctor intervention. So it happens in a matter of minutes. Normally the process would take maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes. That process before COVID was addressing about 25 to 30% of our claims. Today, of our group health claims, today that number has gone to 60%. And I think this is a secular change. It's not going to go back to 24% because the engine has got even more trained and competent to handle some of these things. So I think COVID has had a tremendous impact in terms of a step change in this journey of digitization, which is all for the betterment of both for customer experience and convenience for them, and effectively better cost and control for insurance companies.
Right. But from a digital perspective, Dr. Prakash, I mean, does this, in terms of digital, do frauds go down or up, the possibilities? Does it make it easier for frauds to happen on a different count, or does it make it the whole system more efficient?
Definitely, digital should help to unearth and prevent fraud. Today, the industry is more dependent on people-driven process. Slowly, it should be data-driven, and from people-driven, we have to move into process-driven. So there is a greater role for fraud analytics tool, which can look at customer-related fraud, hospital-related fraud, adjudicator-related fraud, or intermediary-related fraud. So all these informations have to be fed into the system, and insurance companies should come up with such fraud analytics tool with a good rule engine, which can apparently detect claims with a high index of suspicion. And those claims can be looked in depth. Naturally, digital is going to help us unearth more and more fraud. And it is already, giving us a lot of favorable results.
Sure.
And we are from Star Health Insurance. We are very keen on straight-through processing and robotic process automations. And all these things, we are trying to develop a rule engine so that all the claims can pass through the rule engine before a final approval is given.
Sure. Mayank, what has been your experience? What percentage of your business now is completely digital? And in terms of claims, how much is getting processed digitally? And what is the incidence of, fraudulent transactions in digital versus the physical?
Yeah, so very similar experience as what Bhargav mentioned, right? That firstly, the need for physical documents has been eliminated, right? So documents are now flowing through, digital mediums, either through our, website or app uploads or, scan images. And even with the hospitals, they're coming through portals and therefore all the information flows through that portal. But that still, to my mind, is not a very efficient process, right? The efficiency will lie, as I mentioned very briefly earlier, where typically we move the international way. Now, National Health Agency, along with the participation of all the industry members, and at the same time, IRDA, the entity IIB, again, along with all the players, is now trying to create two different claims, what I call digital claims platform. Now, these claims platform will sit between the insurance companies and the healthcare industry. And I'll give you why it is important, right? Suppose each of the four providers here, suppose, health, and from a health perspective, if let's say my organization, Bhargav's organization, and Dr. Prakash's organization go and say to hospital A, integrate with us. And so it's a mammoth job for that hospital, right? Whereas if we all integrate to one claims platform and that claims platform goes to each hospital and integrates, it becomes a very simple process. That is where ultimately we have to move to, right? And therefore, all our collective effort is to make that process happen. I'm very happy that we have, I think the government, the regulator, and industry is now making serious effort on that. Now, which is it will take some time, but when it happens, then I think the whole process of claims management will be very, disruptively different from what you're experiencing today. But as of now, we are virtually doing everything on digital documents, not on paperwork. Though it does create some challenges because, for example, if they are, emailing scanned images, a lot of these images are large, and though the customer is having to send multiple emails, sometimes it creates, logistical problem. But anyway, I mean, it's better than the customer having to deal with not being able to courier, etc. On the fraud piece, see, what we are doing, I'm sure all other peers of ours as well, is that because of AI and machine learning, you can now really, using data, create smart rules which start detecting potential frauds, right? So they create, I mean, unlike human intervention where you look at the documents and apply your rules, now machine is applying rules and it is throwing up potential fraud. So to the point that Bhargav was earlier making, that you end up investigating cases and you find that actually there's no fraud there because it's a genuine case. Machine, AI and ML can actually start helping you detect them much better. There'll still be what is called false positives, but over a period of time, as you make your data better and better and better, and your rules better, that false positives comes down and you're able to detect frauds better. I think what it does is it also sends a very strong message to the fraudsters in the market that, these organizations are able to detect our frauds, right? So unless there is a large scale, what I would say, some real, fraud, like what happens in, happened in some part of Haryana over a personal accident, frauds, etc. This is going to keep reducing. Plus the experience of Ayushman Bharat, where the government, NHA, has created a lot of these fraud engines for detecting fraud, even at the scale of Ayushman Bharat. All of that can be now leveraged over a period of time, because NHA is now saying that work together to create products, leveraging the infrastructure that we have created. So I think it's a journey, Mahalakshmi. I think we are working on it, but my sense is 2 years from now, the scene will be very, very different.
Sure. Ashish, what kind of challenges have you seen, have you experienced in accelerating your, digital enablement over the, during this period of pandemic? And how much have you gained in terms of efficiency?
So, Mahalakshmi, I think, again, similar experiences, I believe, across. So a lot of acceleration given, the COVID situation. So we, in some sense, we are sort of processing everything digitally. But, as Mayank says, there is a lot of some, scanned images coming, this and another. So some bit of, manual intervention. The good thing is the propensity models that we've deployed now are helping, detect frauds and make us much more efficient. So I do believe that, we are getting more and more efficient. For example, we came out with what we call a claims promise. We say that, any normal claim is processed within 24 hours. And now we are looking at, reducing that even further. So we are getting more efficient for sure. I think the trick is, how do we reduce the inflow? And therefore we are now, detecting a claim detecting a fraud at the claim stage, right, is okay. But, the fact that this policy came in, so we are trying to now focus at the policy pre-issuance stage on how can we, detect and, work with different agencies, government agencies, we're working with IRDA, other players, etc., to see how we curtail that at the inflow stage itself.
So Dr. Prakash, my worry as a consumer, as we talk about more and more AI, ML, early fraud detection, what I'm hearing is, will the industry move from adverse selection to favorable selection, which is going to adversely impact my premiums, mean more exclusions for me, more exclusion of pre-existing conditions, higher risk, which is exactly the premise for which I would buy an insurance. The data is going to work against me. So how real is my fear? And what can we do to guard the customer's interest?
That's a very nice question, because as a doctor, having moved into insurance from clinical practice, I see a lot of people asking for an insurance cover after they are diagnosed with a disease. Like in India, a lot of people are suffering from diabetes and they are looking forward to a day one cover with all inclusions. Somebody is affected with a heart disease and he undergoes a stent or a bypass surgery. And after that, he realizes the importance of insurance. And even today, with the early diagnosis, there are a lot of cancer patients who are successful warriors. They live they have a quality of life almost equal to others after a successful cancer treatment. But unfortunately today, people who are diagnosed with a major ailment or a disease, they are not given an insurance cover. So ideally, insurers should come forward to create disease-specific covers. Somebody diagnosed with a kidney disease or a cancer should have an health insurance cover. It can be a specific cover to accommodate those people who are diagnosed with an ailment. Because as a medical person, I find that is the reason why in Star Health Insurance, we have introduced for the first time an health insurance for someone after a diagnosis of cancer. After he or she undergoes a bypass surgery or a coronary stenting or an angiogram, we want to give an insurance cover. So I think the way forward should be, as you rightly pointed out, instead of fearing about adverse risk, we have to go in and we have to start covering the certainties from risks to certainty. That should be the transformation the industry should look forward in the near future. In that way, we can also win the trust and confidence of more and more people. And insurance as a concept can help more people living with a diagnosis of a disease.
Sure. Bhargav, can you expound on this whole principle of fairness? How do we really approach this? And I go back to, the trust factor, reinstate faith that all of this digital AI, ML, whatever tools that we have will in the end build trust and provide coverage as it should.
No, I think that's a great question, Mahalakshmi, because the whole idea of insurance is that how do you provide universal coverage to everyone? Now, let's pick up the specific point that you made, that, let's say there is a risk pool that I talked about right in the beginning, right? And you need to ensure that the pool is constituted with similar risk profiles. So when we talk about the fact that you want to identify who is different in terms of risk profile, you're trying to be fair to the people who are of the same risk profile. And that's one element of fairness. But what about the people who are at risk, what Dr. Prakash was talking about? So just by eliminating is not the solution. We have to find a solution for them.
Right.
And I think as the industry evolves and matures and scales up, there will be specific products. All of us have had specific products for specific diseases, as Dr. Prakash talked about. Some of us have taken a bigger lead in that, but as the industry matures, we will have products for them. Now, one of the journeys that we believe insurance can play a big role in, and IRDA has allowed us to do a lot of experimentation under the sandbox regime, is to do disease management, for example. Let's look at a high-risk pool of people who are maybe at risk of, maybe they've had a cardiovascular event in the past, and you need to manage that risk. I think there is a lot of good work that insurance companies can do, and globally there are examples of companies doing this. In South Africa, in US, and etc., where insurance companies step in and provide you with disease management services to keep you healthy. I mean, one thing we must understand and appreciate is that our interest as an insurance company is completely aligned with the consumer, because we also want the consumer to remain healthy. Because if a customer remains healthy, we save money in terms of claims. And obviously, as a customer, everyone wants to stay healthy. So the point is segregation of the pool and finding appropriate solutions to different risk pools. One, to the healthy pool where premiums may be low, you do a lot of wellness and preventive stuff. There could be a high risk pool where you come in with a slightly higher price, but if you manage the disease well, and we can help you through that process, your premium will stay under control and potentially come down. Now, these are the journeys that we will see evolve in insurance in India, and we are beginning to see some of those early steps.
Sure. Bhargav, you talked interestingly about alignment, and that's the next point I want to raise. That, of course, there is alignment to some degree between the insurance company and the seeker. But the villain in this equation seems to be the hospitals, who tend to are often accused of inflating prices. And obviously, there is a clear conflict in terms of what the insurance companies would want, which is to always have a lid and cap and checks and balances in terms of containing costs, versus what hospitals, because that's their primary business, would want in terms of, always making the most of a situation. So how do we create this alignment, Dr. Prakash? And is there anything that you are doing differently in terms of negotiating with hospitals to achieve this alignment?
So it's $1 million question, and globally, a final consensus between payer and provider is yet to be reached, because there is always expectation mismatch. But definitely we should create a platform for the service providers, hospitals, to express their concerns and misconceptions on the insurance concept. And we should also be able to explain to them, as Mr. Bhargav beautifully said, we are only managing the common pool. It has to be made very clear to the hospitals and doctors so that they cannot think that it is only insurance is paying so they can charge more. It is not insurance paying from their pocket. It is again the collected money from so many people, the customers. We are only custodian of that common fund. So this the concept of insurance, that it has to help people who are in need. This has to necessarily reach the ears of treating doctors. Particularly today, insurance policies are sold for 50 lakh sum insured and 1 crore sum insured, meaning that these patients are going to reach high-end corporate hospitals. So the specialist and super specialist in such hospitals should take time to fill the pre-authorization request and send it to the health insurance companies with all relevant details. They should not look at it as a job to be done by a junior doctor or an administrator. There is a lot of lack of transparency, because the treating doctor thinks of a different plan of management, and the information that reaches the insurance companies or from the front office or all administrators. So this is creating a lot of mismatch. So the hospitals, the front office, they should be well equipped about the basic information and fundamental strategies that they should know. Because hospitals are getting a huge traffic and a turnover from insurance business. Last year, for example, we would have paid more, the industry as a whole would have paid more than 20 million, 2 crore claims. We would have paid an amount of maybe 6 billion rupees.
Right.
So there is a huge opportunities that exist with the insurance companies. And today, hospitals, without any effort on marketing, advertisement, or reaching smaller hospitals for referral, they are getting a direct business. The only thing that they should do is spend some time on understanding the nuances, understanding the requirements of the health insurance company, and giving the due respect to a health insurance request, pre-authorization request. Whatever may be the qualification of the super specialist or a specialist he may be, he should come forward and he should fill the pre-authorization form. He should make the diagnosis and he should make it very clear about what is his plan of management. This can be the first step towards reducing unnecessary queries from insurance companies and giving a very hassle-free service to the customers.
But is that really a procedural matter or a transparency issue, or a basic conflict in terms of what the payer would like? The insurance company would like to pay versus what they would like to get paid. Isn't there a conflict right there? And I think that's the bigger bridge to bridge that we need to bring about than a procedural transparency issue.
You're right, apart from the procedural issues, but here the hospitals as a whole, we cannot take as one entity. There are some hospitals which are running for generations, very ethical, very professional, highly transparent, and they are really saving lives. And at the other end, there are hospitals who wanted to maybe make more. I do not know, overcharging, it comes under fraud. If that comes under fraud, then it will be a big number. There are hospitals which want to bundle 2-3 procedures and claim as different entities. There are people who want to abuse antibiotics and have a high trade margin on consumables and prosthetics. These things happen. So right. The hospitals cannot be looked at as one entity. In my experience, I have seen people who are very fair and transparent players and who are very well respected in the community and also respected by the insurers. At the other end, there are people who are trying to move away from ethics. So that is the reason why I always claim that to eliminate fraudulent practices, my first job as a medical man in the insurance sector is to recognize and identify people who are straightforward. That is the first step to eliminate fraud.
Sure. Mayak, from your perspective, since you brought this point saying that, if overcharging is really a fraud and has to be recognized as a fraud, then there will be a huge repercussion. What is the regulatory framework around frauds right now? And does it really cover hospitals as institutions that can be brought to book to make this whole system more efficient?
See, Malashi, this is a very complex subject. If my senior colleague, Dr. Prakash, coming from the medical fraternity, he was expressing his, sharing. So you can understand that, there's no easy answer. Firstly, health, regulations, the government can only central government can only propose a model regulation. Each state has to adopt, like the Clinical Establishment Act, there was a model proposed, but every state had to enact it, right? And if you look at how many states actually enacted it, you'll be surprised to see the number. So firstly, there's a whole issue, and even the regulator, IRDA, cannot technically regulate the health, hospital. They can only provide some, guideline like the RONI registration, etc. But there's no way you can regulate. When we talk about cause, we talk about something called fraud, waste, and abuse, FWA. You spoke about fraud earlier. Waste and abuse actually is an equally important part of the whole issue that the industry has to deal with. Now, there are 2 or 3 issues. Like, one, is the patient being given the treatment which is as per a standard protocol? That means, this is basically the treatment that you can give. There are standard treatment guidelines which have been issued. There are drafts which have been issued by the national government, and so that they can be proposed now under Ayushman Bharat. They are being used. They are being proposed, and so on and so forth. But have they've been adopted? No, not yet, right? Various industry bodies, with the blessings of IRDA, proposed that. Nothing happened on that. So there itself, some hospitals end up, giving treatment which, and as non-medical people, as coming from, the health insurance especially cannot question it beyond a point of time. They can only raise raise an issue that, is it there? You cannot say, oh, this has to be given or not given, because that's completely at the medical fraternity to decide, right?
Right.
The second one is what I call abuse, that, just because, the guy has got a 5 lakh sum assured, even if the treatment can be done in 3 lakh and, the guy can be, released in 7 days, you keep them in the hospital for 15 days, and especially for ones who don't have a very high occupancy. So all of this wastage and abuse happen across the healthcare ecosystem, which is so fragmented in India. And as an industry, even at the large body like ours, we cannot do beyond a point of time. It's an ongoing dialogue. You take what has happened in COVID times, right? I mean, there's already an issue whether, the council has been trying to talk to the healthcare industry, trying to propose, because this is for the first time that, at least from a treatment protocol perspective, the government had issued a protocol that this is the COVID treatment protocol every hospital, private, public, small, big, has to follow. So then at least we can have a range of cost and all, right? Still, there is a big challenge. So it's an ongoing thing. And the one way to do that is, as under the, national health, the Ayushman Bharat, and as they're trying to increase the coverage, the more and more guidelines start getting, adopted for larger scope. And as insurance penetration increases, the ability of the industry to then, negotiate and talk together increases. But there's no simple answer to my mind on this, Mahalakshmi.
Sure. I'm loving this conversation, but unfortunately we are racing against time. So one last question, Ashish, maybe you can start, but I would want everybody's take on this. What is it that you would expect to do as an insurance company over the next 1 to 3 years to alter the customer experience, may I say, make it magical from where we are today? You're not audible, Ashish, to me.
Sorry, yeah. So, I think it's a fantastic question, and magical it is. That's the target. As honestly, during these COVID times, I think this has been discussed, debated. Saying, our customers are, are used to now online transactions, which are much, much smoother. And how can we reach there? And just to add a little on the last point you made, Mahalakshmi, on, all these tech analytics platforms, AI, etc. Is it making customers' lives more difficult? I would say, all these are in the back end. To be honest, all this is helping us making customer life journeys even more simpler. So at the front end, because what happens is we get more confident that, we are able to weed out the unwanted, the fraudsters, and therefore we provide simpler journeys. For example, you'd see that, even us, we increased our what we call non-medical limits for a category of customers. So if you go in, you can just buy online, simple journey, closed within a few hours, to say the least. So we do want to improve our customer journeys and take it to a level where when we speak to some distributors, they tell us, particularly the online ones, they tell us we want to customers to buy insurance in 3 clicks.
Right.
And that's the target, to be honest. And whatever we need to do at the back end, introduced RPA, analytics, AI, blockchain, whatever, that's the target. And I can tell you, at PNB MetLife, at least, we are focusing. We made a global team to handle this situation. Sure.
With respect to claim settlement, Ashish, what will be your any initiatives or something that you would pursue to make it better?
So after the Claims Assure that we've launched, which is 24 hours claim settlement, we are now looking at a claim settlement within 3 to 4 hours. Okay. And that's the next target.
Okay, sure. Bhargav, what is your next milestone with respect to claim settlement and magical customer experience?
So let me take the first one first, the second one first, the magical experience. Look, I think, a lot of points have come through during the course of this discussion. As Ashish said, clearly the endeavor has to be to take advantage of the technology that is available today to make the journey simple, easy to understand, convenient for customers. And all the technology investment that we are doing behind is for that. Second thing that we are trying to do is a lot of DIY, as in empower the customer to do things on their own. We've been talking about health, but let's say motor, which is also one big part of our business. Let the customer do the survey rather than wait for a survey to come. And these are initiatives that we've launched before COVID, but we've seen tremendous increase in the percentage of customers who are doing the survey using a mobile app. And there is a technology behind it. You can do it using an AI, and the complex ones can go to a surveyor sitting in his home and do it for you. So put more power in the hand of the customer so that he's in charge of what he's doing. That's the second part. But the third, and I think the biggest effort really is, we spend a lot of time talking about fraud. We can debate the number, but it's still single digit percentage of our customers who are probably themselves wanting to abuse the process. And it's very important for us to with a lot of certainty identify the guys who are genuine guys and the guys who are not. And that's where a lot of the claims analytics, the fraud propensity models, etc., that we do, is to ensure that the guys that we can trust, and increasing the trust score to us is a big journey, so that we identify who are the guys that we can trust and make the process magical. For the others, we don't want it to be magical, because that's also our responsibility to control fraud, because otherwise the genuine customers suffer. So I think those are the three journeys, simplicity, through digitization, etc., more DIY, and increasing the trust score.
Sure. Dr. Prakash?
Yeah. So I can only compliment what Mr. Bhargav has nicely summarized. So insurance is actually the power of insurance is settlement of claims. And it is a business of deep pockets. And definitely, we have to understand the hospitals, and both of us should coexist. Insurance companies and hospitals should be partners in progress. That is very important. And we have to work together to see that how we can eliminate exploitation at both ends. Finally, I can say one thing: 7 to 8 lakh crore is the money spent on healthcare. But unfortunately, there is no regulator. So how long will it take to bring in a regulator for health?
Right. Sure. Mayank?
When I visited my partner's operations in South Africa, they cover all benefits, right? Not just hospitalization, but in South Africa they cover pharmacy, doctors, medicine, etc., testing. 95% plus of their claims are adjudicated humanless and paperless, which means no human involvement, no paper involvement, machine to machine, right? I wish we can get to that stage, someday in India, because that's where the experience has to be. And whether it's 95%, even if we can start and say, 5%, 10%, 15%. Now, in a country which exports technology to the world, why can we not make that happen? So with all of the national digital health stack that is being created, like we have done for Aadhaar, India has got the best technology stack today, JAM, right? I wish that, and I hope that the health stack that is being proposed in India can help us create that infrastructure as an enabler to create this experience for our customers in India. I would love to be, able to see that one day.
And I think if I can add to mine, that is probably one of the biggest national agendas that we have on the health side. Really, that's something that we can do. And the biggest challenge is a fragmented system where the states will step in and not allow this to happen. If anything that we can do as a nation, this is not something that we can do as an industry. This is, I think, one of the most important agendas that we have as a nation.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, for this really lovely, lively discussion. I really enjoyed every bit of it and educated myself. Thank you so much. And of course, till we meet next, I hope there is a healthcare regulator in place, and the healthcare tax also becomes a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mahalakshmi.